Hello, everyone. Welcome to Prophecy Roundtable. Man, we don't have all the answers, but we're going to have a great conversation. And today we are going to talk about, is the beast the return of Nimrod? Now, you might be thinking, wait a second, those are at different ends of the Bible. Well, that's true, but there's some amazing parallels. And to help me figure out this perplexing question, I've got Jessica Arellanes, who is in the beautiful state of Florida. And so we're glad that I'm glad that you can join me for this. Scott is on his way to Israel right now, so that's why he is not with us. But everybody, please put some questions in the chat if you have some for us. We're looking forward to getting into this. So how's everything been going, Jessica?
Well, so far, so good. I am so jealous that Scott is in Gore, actually on his way to the motherland. Let me just turn myself on. On his way to the motherland. I think he's going up with Alyssa Allwine with their crew.
Should be a great trip. That would be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Good stuff. You have something coming up next year, right?
I do. Yeah. April 2024. If people want to go with the Way Congregation, go to thewaycongregation.com. There's a button that says Israel trip. We're filling up, but we do still have some space. Also, if people want to make any last minute plans for Sukkot, you can join us out here in Denver, Colorado. We're going to be at Cherry Creek Reservoir. So bring your tent or your trailer or camper, whatever it is, and join us. It's a lot of fun. It's going to be really a wonderful time. The last 2 years, we just had a fantastic time. And so I think this
What are the dates?
September 29th through October 6th.
Perfect. So there's
the nice thing about Cherry Creek is if you have to do your day job, you can still go do that and then join us. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Sounds like
fun. I know. I'm pretty excited about that. All right. So the big question here, Nimrod. All right. Let's maybe think about Nimrod a little bit, and then we'll think about some of the parallels between him and the beast. Now, what I do find interesting is it says that the beast that comes up out of the abyss is going to make war with the two witnesses, and that is the only way they're going to be stopped. So Nimrod, right? I don't know. I want to let you have some thoughts here, but I want to at least set the stage enough. So if you have some things, please just jump in and throw them out there because that'll be a lot of fun. So yeah, let's go back here. So let's think about Nimrod for a second. Okay, Nimrod in the ancient world, he was known as Ninurta. Ninurta means Lord of the Earth. His father, and I'm talking mythological father, okay, was Enlil. Enlil is Satan. Enlil is the same as Halel in Isaiah 14:12. Okay, how you fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, or Halel in the Hebrew, which is Enlil in the Sumerian. Enlil had a son named Ninurta, Lord of the Earth. Ninurta, if you look at those root letters, you come up with Nimrod. And I didn't make that up. This is other scholars that are saying this. Okay. So Nimrod, let's rebel, is the same as Lord of the Earth. And you find this dynamic duo all over the ancient Mesopotamia. All right. So we're told in scripture that Nimrod, who was the son of Cush, that he began to be a Gibor. Okay. Now, the word Gibor doesn't always mean giant or something like that, but it can also mean that. And we see in the Greek Septuagint, it was the word gigas, which was a hybrid, was a demigod. All right. So something happened to Nimrod. He changed. He became something different. I think he became a demigod. He became, a god for simplicity. We'll just say that. Okay. Could it be that this rebel that was there back in those days of the Tower of Babel, the one who also established the city of Babel, he established, Erech, Akkad, Babel, right? So these are some of the principal cities that he established. And could it be that maybe he's going to come back? I don't know. What are your thoughts, Jessica?
Well, so I am not sure if you have watched the most recent docuseries on Netflix called or titled King of Clones.
Oh, wow.
Have you watched that?
I have
King
not.
of Clones?
Sounds like I
Well,
better get my Netflix subscription again.
it's very, very interesting. So basically, it is following the work of Dr. Huang Wu
Mhm.
Suk.
Huh. Wow.
Huang Wu Suk. And there was a massive conspiracy surrounding his work. But basically, he was the first to come out and claim that he had succeeded in creating human embryonic stem cells by
Mm.
cloning.
Hmm.
And then later on, he also claimed that he was successful at creating the first human embryo. Now, if you follow the docuseries, you'll find that he was able to clone various mammalians, including pets, which was that's like so long ago. So in the cloning world. And so I began to look at that. It made me think about the battle for embryonic stem cells when everybody was like, this is just unethical, inhumane, not okay. It's experimental. How far are we going to go with this? But again, the controversy surrounding his experiments was that his information was falsified. Not so much that he was not the one who was successful at doing this, but that perhaps he used some sort of maybe backhanded practices to accomplish his work. And so basically, he was cited for bioethical violations. But nonetheless, very interesting to note that they are claiming to have already cloned. They're this close to like cloning the human. And so I guess my question would be starting there and then maybe even going into CRISPR technology and epigenetics and transferring that information to maybe perhaps. Okay, so here's what I was thinking. Let me just put my information out there. So what I was thinking was, if it is Nimrod, this beast that will be resurrected in this appointed time, in this specific time, why Nimrod? I guess that would be my question to you first. Why Nimrod? What did he possess, or what does he have that holds interest to the fallen angel? Or is Nimrod the embodiment of Hillel ben Shachar?
Mm.
So if you want to maybe answer those, and then I guess I can ask my next
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the research I did, in case people are interested, is Encrypting the Image Volume 2. I asked myself a lot of these rather challenging questions. So there's some pretty weird stuff going on in the book of Revelation. Okay. So you've got this one known as the dragon. I'm like, okay, I know Satan is the dragon, but why? Why is he called the dragon? Why is he a great red dragon? So, long story short, as I was doing my research, I'm going back to ancient Sumer. Ancient Sumer is probably the oldest civilization known to man. Okay. It's certainly the oldest written civilization. Okay. So, as far as writing goes, they get it. They get the award. All right. So, and then of course, I was asking, why is there no reference, zero, of Satan or Lucifer in the ancient world?
Mm.
If I do think Satan is real, and I think the one that we know as Lucifer, that we often use that term, I think he was real as well. I think he and Satan are the same guy. So why is there no reference to these guys? And again, long story short, what I found is that Hillel in the Hebrew is actually Enlil in the ancient world. And Enlil was the god who separated heaven and earth. He took earth as his portion, and the creator god, Anu, took heaven as his portion. And I'm like, wow, this really sounds familiar, this story. Okay. Um, And Enlil, his name in Sumerian probably means Lord Wind. Paul talks about the prince of the power of the air. He also was the god of the 33 stars. He was the god of the way of the north, right? We see that Satan was going to take the farthest sides of the north. That's one of the things that he wanted to do. He was going to Enlil wanted to set his throne above the stars of God. That's definitely what there is there in Isaiah chapter 14. And there's many other things that point in that same direction. So Enlil also was said to have a son. He engendered Ninurta. And guess what he gave to Ninurta? He gave him his tablet of destinies. And having the tablet of destinies was basically the keys to the kingdom. You had the power,
Alchemy.
throne, and authority, right? And I think, Satan is kind of a selfish dude. Last time I checked, I'm not sure why he would give that to anybody. And yet we see in Revelation 13 that the dragon is going to give his power, throne, and authority to the beast. I'm like, okay, I'm seeing something here. Now, going back, the great red dragon motif that we see in the book of Revelation is it's 100% match for Enlil. All right. So we see that hands down. If you've ever seen the Ishtar gates, those have two kinds of creatures there. One is kind of more dragon-like. That is called the Mushhushu. And this Mushhushu is probably the same word for Nachash. Okay. And I always try to be careful when I'm talking about linguistics, okay? Because some things I can prove 100%, some things I can prove, I think, 80%, okay? So I would say that the correlation between Mushhushu and Nachash, I'd give that a 80 to 85%, in my opinion. So I think they're exactly the same. Nachash, of course, is snake, all right? Serpent. And then the whole idea of the beast. We see in Daniel chapter 7, it says that there was a lion, and then he was made to stand on 2 feet like a man. That is the motif for Ninurta or for Nimrod. All right. So again, what's really interesting in the ancient world, there was this kind of ambivalence. I'm like, are we talking about Enlil? Are we talking about Ninurta? And the answer was yes. Okay. So there was another iteration of this dragon kind of creature, and it was called the Anzu bird. All right. And it was very much a hybridized being. It had a lion type body. It had eagle's talons on its back paws. So it had eagle's talons instead. It had eagle's wings. You can see kind of a plumage on this lion. Definitely has a lion's head. In other variations on this theme, you see that it's little bit more horse-like, but then it still has those lion kind of qualities because it then morphed into having sort of a centaur type body, right? So it's got a man's torso with a man's head, but then it also has a lion's head, okay? And it has a scorpion's tail and a serpent-headed phallus. Wow. Okay, this is pretty wild stuff. All right, and who is that? Well, that's Enlil and also Ninurta, and then later became known as Nergal and others as well. So what's interesting is that it's both Enlil and Ninurta. And to me, this really started to come into focus when it started coming together for me is that what I think Satan is trying to do is create an avatar. I really think that is the plan. Just like the movie Avatar, okay?
Right, a flesh suit.
Yeah, Sully, his legs didn't work, but man, when he transferred his essence, whatever that is, into the avatar, he was like a whole new dude, right? And I think that's kind of what Satan wants to do. He last we checked, God's like, okay, you got to slither on your belly, and you don't get to have that much fun. And he's like, and I need a new suit, all right? And that's essentially what he's trying to do is create a flesh suit, a body suit. So that he can roam around on his own 2 legs in this dimension. And that is what the whole idea of the beast is. So when he says he's going to give his power, throne, and authority to the beast, I think what he's really doing is saying, I'm just going to transfer everything, and then I'm going to
Right.
inhabit you, possess you, but not just temporarily possess you, but I'm going to completely take over. Right. And what kind of got me jazzed is I'm looking at Judas, right? He and the beast are both called the son of perdition. I'm like,
Right.
oh my goodness, there's really something to this, right? You know, why would Judas be called the son of perdition? Because we're told that as soon as Judas took the bread there at the Last Supper, it says, then Satan possessed him and entered into him.
Entered his heart.
Entered into him, yeah. So he possessed him. And then I was doing some research, and I discovered this guy named Chris out of Reno, Nevada. He had leukemia, and so he needed a bone marrow transplant, and he got it from a guy in Germany. And this forensics lab was tracking his progress, and they did before and after of his DNA. And what they showed is that several months after getting this bone marrow transplant, is that he began to change genetically to that of his donor. The DNA in his blood changed to that of his donor. The DNA in his semen changed to that of his donor. Right. And I'm like, oh my goodness, there's really something incredible going on here. Is that, you know, if we now have that kind of technology to do that, and it doesn't prove everything, but it's like a big, I think that's kind of where we're going. And I would argue that is basically what Satan wants to do. And in Revelation 17, when it talks about, you know, that these 7 mountains are 7 kingdoms, right? 5 have fallen, 1 is, and 1 will rise up, and he'll be the 7th, and he's also the 8th. All right. So I would suggest that the first one was Nimrod. It was the kingdom of Nimrod and the kingdom of Babel. And so if we're looking at kingdoms, where these are all kingdoms that that were part of the Babylonian kingdom, the Babel kingdom. And now these other nations came in and conquered Babel. That is true. But really, if you think about it, it was Babel that conquered them. Militarily, they lost, but culturally, Babel won.
Sure.
All right. So the Akkadians come in, then the Neo-Babylonian Empire comes in, then come the Persians, then come the Greeks, then come the Romans. That's the one that is, all right, in John's day. And then we're going to have, you know, then we have maybe a revised Roman Empire, perhaps. And then I think the beast is going to be the 7th, but he's also the 8th. He's of the 7. He's of the 7 because he was there in the beginning. But then numerically, he'll also be number 8. So he's kind of a new start, if you will, to an old thing. Kind of like, you know, Sunday repeats, right? Every week. It's the 8th day, but it's also the first day. So that's kind of how I see it. And this is Satan's big plan, is to create an avatar that he himself can possess.
Well, I have a motive.
Yes.
I have a motive.
Go for it.
So you mentioned a word. I was wondering if it was connected to Nehushtan. Nehushtan. What was the word that you said? You can't quite prove it.
Yeah. So Mushhushu. The
I wonder if
Mushhushu. Well, the Nehushtan
connected to that brazen serpent.
Oh, very much. So Nachash and Nehushtan are exactly the same root. Nehushtan simply being the bronze serpent. Right. So bronze, you know, bronze and bronze serpent, and then serpent and bronze are.
But it's also connected to seraphim.
Yes. Well, seraphim are, of course, the fiery ones. Right. Seraph.
And what was Satan?
Satan was a keruv, right? So
Cherubim.
Which probably means, yeah. Well, he was a keruv. He was, cherubim is plural, right?
Plural.
So keruv is singular, yeah. So I think cheruvim and seraphim are exactly the same thing, in my humble opinion, because in Ezekiel chapter 1, when it talks about the description of these cheruvim, it describes them as being fiery kinds of creatures, and that's exactly what the word saraf means. It means fiery. So they're exactly the same thing. We see that the cherubim or the cheruvim that are described in Ezekiel chapter 1 are the same creatures that we have in Revelation chapter 4 that are saying, holy, 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 which are the same creatures that we find in Isaiah chapter 6 that are saying, holy, 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 right? And so there seems to be a difference of two wings, and I haven't quite resolved how to fix that yet, but that seems to be the only difference between them. So
All right,
that's where I would take it.
let's see if I can suggest a motive,
Please.
since you excellent at laying the foundation. So I think the motive, and I agree with you in regard to striving towards creating some sort of material in which this entity can dwell within without being removed from the entity because of the free will. Are you still there?
I'm still
Okay, I think
here.
you're still.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Something happened on my end. All right. Don't leave me, Doug. So
I'm
here's the
still
thing.
here.
So I think it has to do with ruling kingdoms. So in order for a spirit, which is what we're told these angels or melachim are, they are spirits, and you had mentioned powers of the air, prince of the air. So these spirits, we know that when Elohim created man, he breathed into him the breath of life. We also know that by faith we can receive the indwelling of the Holy Spirit, and therefore man can have the influence of a spirit working within him. However, the problem is man has a free will. So whether a person believes that they can be oppressed or possessed by an unclean spirit does not deviate from the truth, which is he can. And therefore, a person can assume that some of their addictions, some of their issues, outbursts, whatever the case may be, is just simply an element of their nature, when in fact, oftentimes the person is oppressed. There is more than likely an open door that allows an unclean spirit to come in and to lay strongholds or foundations that are set up or erected against the individual's mindset, causing that person to then become a slave to that particular type of sin. So with that being said, if in fact a person is oppressed by an unclean spirit and he does not know it, he can simply say, no, I'm choosing not to do that today. So you have the problem of the will. And so I'm sure that Satan and his legion are striving to create a flesh body or a suit in which they can inhabit that has attributes that are complementary to what they require in order to become superhuman, super meaning above, superhuman, and or ubermensch, these supermen, these godlike entities that are very similar to human beings, right? And so with that being said, I want to show you something. When Paul is writing to the Thessalonians, he makes mention of a type of rulership that is present in that region. And he calls them, he says that the city was ruled by politarchs. And this word politarchs it means basically rulers in high places. And it was a class of officials peculiar to that region, mentioned by that author as the rulers of the city. And you can find that in Acts 17, verse 6. Well, what's interesting is that this is a compound word from polis, meaning city, and archo, which is a rank or a ruler. You can find that in Ephesians 6:12. But it's also connected to the word domain, which is archon, residence, oikotherion, principalities, archai, patriarchs, ruling fathers, right? Patri, and then arcs. Something that's very, very interesting is that these leaders would accuse Paul, the Jewish leaders of the time would accuse Paul and his band of turning the world upside down in Acts chapter 17:6, which was a civil charge. Now, the Greeks rendered that phrase as, I'll probably slaughter this, but I'll do my best. Ten oikomenon anasta dosantes. And basically, what that means is that they were turning the kingdoms of the Oikomenon upside down. Well, guess what, Doug? In Luke chapter 4, verse 5, it says that Satan takes Yeshua up to the high places, up to the mountain, and showed him all the kingdoms of the Oikomenon in a moment in time. Now, that word for Oikomenon means home, empire, world, present age. Okay, it's compared to the age or Oikomenon to come that is subject, that becomes, comes into subjection under Yahusha's rule and Yeshua's rule in Hebrews chapter 2, verse 5. Now, the Oikomenon was and is currently under the subjection of these rulers in high places, these powers of darkness. But we know that this is truly the battle. It's a battle for kingship, right? So you're going to have a ruler of darkness that will more than likely strive to rise up in order to rule without having to mediate through the weakness of man. And so again, what is the effort? So that's why I was saying, what do you think Nimrod's motive is? And I am pretty sure that his motive is that he wants to establish himself as the ruler of this age, the Oikomenon. And again, this is what he was offering up to Yeshua. But there is hope. We know that according to the word, this present age will eventually be consumed, and the age of sin and death will be swallowed up in victory. And we know that the victory of Yeshua will usher in a new Oikomenon, a new heaven, a new earth, and that the glory of heaven will come to the earth and shine upon it. One more thing, that word that I can't pronounce, anastatosantes, it means literally to drive out of home, to stir up or to agitate. So if they were saying that Paul and his band of believers, or his crew, were doing this, they were saying something in the natural, but I believe that it was also something spiritual, that they were driving out by the power of the word the leaders or rulers of darkness. And again, this is what the true threat to Satan is. And so why would he want to clone, if possible, create another entity or a flesh suit? Well, it's so that he could dwell within our space-time continuum. He needs mass, he needs material in order to dwell and to rule without having to utilize the weakness of these, earthly leaders. He wants to be the leader. Right. And so, yeah, that's what I think the motive is.
Well, look what happened with Judas, right? He had someone that was called the son of perdition, and yet Judas kind of got cold feet and went and hanged himself, right? And
well, he repented first. Well, it says that he was sorrowful.
He was sorrowful. What happened to him after that, we don't know. But he certainly didn't like the status quo, and he went and changed it, and he killed himself. So there Satan was out of a good employee. So what do, right? It's hard to get good help these days, right? And if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. I think that's kind of the bottom line. So and I think if we go back to Nimrod, right? So again, Nimrod in the ancient world was known as Nin Urta. Okay, so Nin Urta, Nin means Lord, just like En Lil. So Nin and similar. So Nin is Lord. Urta is very similar to the word Eretz. So if people know Hebrew, Eretz, so it's the land, the earth. So he was claiming to be the Lord of the earth. Now, what's interesting, you pointed out in Luke chapter 4, where Satan takes Jesus onto that high mountain. Let's take a look at that again, because this is really, really interesting. He says, look, all this authority I will give to you and their glory, for this has been delivered, handed over to me, and I give it to whomever I wish. Now, you'd think like Jesus would be like, oh, what are you talking about, Satan? That's ridiculous. These This world
This is
doesn't
my
belong to
Father's
you.
house.
Yeah, this is my house, man. What are you talking about? Jesus didn't challenge it. My thinking
Right.
is because Satan was being truthful there. All right.
At that time,
Well,
yes.
in part, okay. He's never entirely truthful, but I think the claim that this belongs to me, I think was true. And I think basically the story goes like this: God makes the earth. He then gives the keys, aka dominion, to Adam and Eve. And Satan comes along and says, "Hey, can I have those keys?" And Adam and Eve say, "Sure, here you go." Now, to get the keys back, you can't just go and steal them or take them from Satan by force, because while he did, have a scheme, he still swindled them fair and square, as it were. All right, and in order to get the dominion of the planet back, God had to buy it back. All right, and the price was high.
The keys.
Yes, right. And so he has the keys of Hades and death. Jesus claims that in Revelation chapter 1. So, okay, so now let's think about this. If you are Satan and you don't want to go down, you don't want to lose, you really want to hold on to this planet, Jesus bested you at the cross. Ooh, that really has got to make you mad, right? It says in Colossians, it's got to sting a lot. It says in Colossians that if he and the principalities had known what was coming, they would never have killed the Prince of Glory. But hey, Jesus is a little smarter. And so they killed him, and he overcame death by doing that. And Satan lost the keys. So now what's the end game here? This is where I hear a lot of preachers and people say, "Oh, Satan knows he's lost. He's just trying to take as many people down on the ship with him." I disagree wholeheartedly. I think he's playing for keeps. I think he's playing to win. And I think he intends, and I think scripture gives us the clues that he is going to get the authority back. Now, why do I think that? Well, let's take a look here in Revelation chapter 13. What do we see? First of all, the dragon gives the beast his power, throne, and great authority. So there's some authority. People say, who can make war with the beast? And it says he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue for 42 months. He opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, etc. It was granted him to make war with the saints and overcome them, and authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. Now, of course, this begs the question, who is giving Satan that authority? Who's giving the beast that authority? I mean, okay, I think a very big, highest of the highest perspective, God is allowing these things to happen. But I don't think that God is like, "Oh, here you go. Here are the keys. I'm going to let you have the authority for a while." I think that, sure, God is allowing things to happen, but he's not causing things to happen. Just like he allowed Satan to steal the dominion from Adam and Eve, but he did not cause that to happen. And I think we have a similar situation, and that mankind is going to give the authority to the beast. And when he has that authority, he will essentially find a back door around the cross, if you will. And mankind is going to empower him with that authority once again. And then it will take a direct intervention by Jesus at the end of this age to come and stamp him out, because mankind is going to be in big trouble.
All right. Check this out. I got to say it. So Isaiah 14:13, and you're on to something. So I do believe it's about establishing his throne. And I think if we really look at this beast, I mean, what was created on the sixth day? The beast of the field, singular, man being one of those beasts. What sets him apart is that word kind, which is species. So that's why his name Adam is not his surname, but the name of the species is mankind. Right. So this is what sets him apart first. Second, that he was created in the image of Elohim. What's also interesting is that if you think about this beast and the fact that he's going to blaspheme God, who is the source of all things living, he's the all existing one, the all extant. Well, then I started thinking, okay, so what is cloning? What will this cloning entail? And what will they then offer to people at some point in time as far as being able to live forever, as far as being able to say, look, now I've become like God in the sense that I could create and I can extend eternal life. Now, if we look at Isaiah 14:13, because again, he's not striving to do something that would seem otherwise wicked. He's striving to be like God. So it says here, you said in your heart, and this is speaking of the day star or the son of the dawn, Hilal ben Shachar. It says that he says, I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of Elohim. I will sit on the mount of assembly. In the far reaches of the north, I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. So when we look at that word for throne, what's interesting is that it speaks of royal dignity, authority, power. So he's talking about his power, his authority to rule. Now, again, going back to that whole oikomenon, anastastosantes, if you look at Luke chapter 4, verse 5, it says, and he showed him all the kingdoms of the world. Well, that word for kingdoms is basilia, Doug, and it means royalty, rule, authority, royal dominion.
There you
And
go.
what dominion does he want? He wants dominion of this present age, which is the oikomenon. And that word for world is oikomenon.
Yeah.
And again, it's speaking of an empire. An empire. So we do see that the contest since the beginning has been against the darkness and the light.
Yep.
The light that was separated from the darkness, right? Because life and death have nothing in common, right? So the darkness was separated. It's the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of light, the kingdom of truth. In my opinion, the kingdom of light has been is created by truth, right? It's the establishment of truth by faith. And so therefore then in contrast would be the darkness is lies, right? It's created by lies, the fallacies of this world and all of its pretentiousness. But back to the idea that his throne, and the fact that they are already putting into effect. Let me explain something real quick. So I don't know what I did with his information here. I'll find it in just a second. But basically, the man that I mentioned, Huang, I think his last name was, or his first name is Huang Wusuk, I think. You can research him.
Sure.
But basically, he claimed to have cloned from embryonic stem cells. Now, if you don't know what that is, they are basically pluripotent stem cells. And pluri means plural, means many. And then potent means possibility, right? It's capable, it's potent. So pluripotent. So pluripotent stem cells are basically the what they can do is that they can they have the ability to differentiate to generate anything. So they can become anything. They're like it's called the master cell, right? The master cell. That's why they were so interested in the aborted tissue. I don't know if I can say that on here. Sorry.
Sure. No.
But anyhow, but they were so interested in it and why it became a commodity actually in the market. And so it's because they were doing research on the umbilical cord, on the stem cells. And so it is because this particular cell is a master cell that has the genetic data to become any element, a bone, the segmented tissue. I mean, it can become anything. So I started thinking, okay, wait, so he's going to blaspheme the creator. He's going to be like the Most High, but in what sense? So then if we tie that in with CRISPR technology, and I'm sure you know what CRISPR technology is, right? It's basically being able to edit. So it's gene editing.
Yes.
So it's basically you can go in and you can edit genes and add that. You have a trifecta here. Add that with epigenetics, right?
Yep.
Where you can actually program the genes.
Yes.
Program the genes to create or to modify. Now, my goodness, what is it? So one of the attributes of Nimrod was that he was a mighty hunter before Elohim.
Yes.
And then in another verse, and I can't remember where it is right now, but it says that they hunt Yah's people, they hunt his people. So I started thinking, my goodness, he is trained at his ability to hunt. What does that mean? So I'll pass it over to you with everything that I just said about the throne and
I
the
love
world and the age.
There's so much.
So much.
Yeah, I know. I mean, so again, I wrote a lot of this in Corrupting the Image Volume 2. I stumbled upon something called the Akitu Festival. This is where the ancient king would embody Marduk or Ninurta, and they would reenact this thing called the Akitu Festival, where they were celebrating the death, the slaying of Anu, the creator god. All right. Now, anytime we try to find correlations between the Bible and ancient mythology, it's not always 100%. It's not always a 1-for-1. All right. But it is interesting that in the Mesopotamian worldview, Anu, the creator god, was basically kind of sort of out of a job, like, yeah, he created everything and then he's off playing golf somewhere. He's not really that busy anymore because his throne, his Anu ship has been it's been taken over, usurped by this dude named Enlil. All right. And so in this Akitu festival, they are celebrating that they usurped and slayed the slew, I don't know, it's something like that, whatever that verb is. They killed him, right? They killed the creator god, and then the Anu ship, his authority, transferred to Enlil, and then Enlil could give it to whoever he wanted to, right? And that was the tablet of destinies. Now, what's interesting in Revelation chapter 5, why is John weeping? Because there's a scroll at the right hand of the Father, and nobody on heaven, on earth, below the earth was found worthy to open the scroll, right? And so he's weeping bitterly. And this elder comes up and says, "Hey, don't worry. The Lion of the tribe of Judah, he is able to open it." And he looks over and he sees a lamb as though it's been slain, right? And everyone starts singing, thank you, hallelujah, because, you're worthy to take the scroll because you were slain, right? And you redeemed us to buy back. You purchased us back. I think the scroll in the right hand of the Father is the tablet of destinies. And it wasn't a matter of, hey, Satan, let's arm wrestle. Whoever is stronger is going to win. It was who had the legal right, the authority to do that. And Jesus had to regain the authority that had been lost by Adam and Eve. Now, another thing that's really interesting is, so Nimrod, you take the root letters, or you have Mem, Resh, Dalet. The first noon is just let's, okay? So his name is from the word marad, which means to rebel. I think the Bible, in a sense, renamed him. It was a pun on his name, the rebel, but I don't think that's what he was called by the Mesopotamians. He was called Ninurta. But you take those same root letters, Mem, Resh, Dalet, and we find those in a number of other gods. We find it in Marduk, okay? Same exact root letters. We find it in the Roman god, Martes, right? And nobody knows where that word actually came from. Clearly, it's not Latin. It's coming from Marduk, okay? The god of the Amorites. God says to Abram, hey, know for certain that your descendants will be slaves, and in the 4th generation, I'm going to take them out because the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete. Who was the god of the Amorites? Martu, okay? Oh my goodness, right? You're like, oh man, I know this guy. His name was Nimrod, right? Marduk, Nimrod, Ninurta, they're all the same guy. You simply have to just transfer. You have to just translate the names a little bit. And once you're like, oh, I get it, right? It all is the same guy. And so I think what was happening is that Nimrod had become a god. He, had these incredible powers. Oh, one more thing. What are the giants called Later on, not early in Genesis chapter 6, but later they're called the Rephaim. That's a weird word, because the word Rapha, even in today, the word Rapha means to heal. A Rophe is a doctor.
That's right.
So why would they use that word? My hunch, my theory, is that they were known as the Rephaim, the healers, because when you became a Rapha or a Rephaim, you became one of them. Rephaim is the plural, but you became one of the Rephaim. You were healed. Healed of what? Your mortality or something like that. All right. And they, basically the promise is, hey, take of my DNA and you'll become something amazing. And when Israel comes into the land, what do they find? A little housewarming gift left by Satan. Hey, here you go. We'll check out all these giants that are in the land. Okay. And then they had to go and destroy them. They had to kill them. Right. I mean, the linguistic connections are mind-boggling of all these things that are going on in the land. Okay. I mean, I could just go on and on, but I don't want to do too much. So, so I think what's happening is we have the same basic plot, is that Nimrod is the beast. He is going to be the avatar of Satan. And the promise to mankind is, hey, you can become a god. Take my DNA, take it into you, and you will be transformed. You'll no longer be weak. You will have
what if he becomes
ability.
the pluripotent cell?
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
That he's then able to then offer to humanity
yes.
as the save all, right?
Right.
Through this master cell, you can live forever.
Yes. And what do you call DNA in the Bible? It's surprisingly simple. It's the word seed.
Gene. Oh, genome. Yeah, gene.
Or seed.
So where we get Genesis from. I mean, Genesis is genome, the genealogy of creation.
There you go.
Pointing to the source.
Right. Another word, seed, right? Seed, sperm.
Zara.
It's all the same thing. All right. So
it's interesting. Yeah. Elohim tells the man that he could eat from any tree that has a seed, which is basically, it has the ability to produce after its own kind. It had the pattern of production. Can I just say something really quick?
Please.
In Ezekiel 28:13, and I know that he's speaking to the king of Tyre, but if we just consider the fact that this may be something that's foreshadowing perhaps an entity that was working through the king at that time. Well, I'll get your opinion on that in just a second. Well, let me get your opinion first. What do you think about that?
I have a lot to say on this. Okay.
Okay, but I do want to make a point after you're done.
I don't want to steal your thunder by any means.
Well, it's only because he says you were anointed as a guardian.
Yes. So what's going on there? I used to think, this is just talking about a human king. The king in question is Melkart, the king of Tyre. His name was Melkart. Now, Melkart is not a human king, but Melech Karat. Okay, Melech Karat is the king of the city. The city there is the underworld city. Okay, the realm of the dead. So Melech Karat was actually found on a bilingual inscription. And so it was also found in Greek and in Phoenician. Okay, so in Phoenician, it was Melech Karat or Melkart. In Greek, it was Heracles. And I'm like, whoa, Heracles, what's going on with that? Well, guess who Heracles is? He is the hero par excellence, who's also Ninurta or Nimrod. Okay, mind blown, right? I mean, this is crazy stuff, right? So yeah, Heracles, Hercules, the son of Zeus, right? He is the one who is just, uber powerful and all this different stuff, right? So we start seeing this correlation. So is it Nimrod or is it Satan? Well, I think here it's they're definitely talking about Satan, but the lines really start to blur.
Right.
That's what's so amazing.
100%. All right. So let's look at a few things then.
Please.
So it says that the charge against him is that he has said in his heart. We just went over this, right? Oh, I'm sorry. That's the wrong one. That's Isaiah. But I want to show you the comparison here.
Of course.
So it says in Ezekiel 28, starting with 13, where he was located in Eden, the Garden of
Mm-hmm.
Elohim.
Mm-hmm.
It shows his covering. Watch this. His covering is he was adorned with ruby, topaz, diamond, beryl, onyx, jasper, all the good things. It says that his mountings and settings, which is speaking of musical instruments, were crafted in gold, prepared on the day of your creation. Then it goes on, it says, you were anointed as a covering cherub, right?
Mm-hmm.
For I
Mm-hmm.
had ordained you. You were on the holy mountain
Mm-hmm.
of Elohim.
Mm-hmm.
You did walk among
Yes.
the fiery stones.
Yeah.
And so something must have happened where maybe perhaps he fell, and he says, I'm going to get back up there. I am
Yep.
going to ascend
Yep.
into the heavens. I will raise my
That's
throne
right.
this time above the stars of Elohim, the
Yes.
fiery stars. I
Oh.
will sit again on the Mount of Assembly in the far
Mm-hmm.
reaches of the north. I will ascend above the clouds, and I will make myself like the Most High. So you
Yes.
see, something must have happened, and where he is saying,
Yep.
okay, what's going on? Well, what's interesting is that that word for covering is, we had mentioned earlier, that is kasa, right? And that's the word for throne. This is the word for throne. It is Strong's 3678 if anybody wants to look it up, but it's kase. I'm sorry, I'm saying it wrong, but I'm thinking of Psalms where it says the covered month or the covered moon, kasa.
I think they're two different. They're really two different words. This is the word masach. You're thinking of kisei.
This one here is 3678 and it's kisei.
Yeah, they're different
Do you
words.
see it?
Yeah, but they're different.
What do you see?
I mean, I don't look at the numbers. I just look at the word. But
okay, I'm looking at it right here. So for that word for throne, it's it's kisei. What do you have?
Kisei is the word for throne. Yes, absolutely.
Right. It's
but it's
from
not the
this
word for
root word.
covering. Well, unless there's a meta thesis, I don't know. Anyway, go on. It maybe doesn't matter.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, so if I were to look at it, it's an Assyrian loan word, and
Okay.
it's kisua, and meaning headdress or cap or covering. It can also, that's the root of the word. It is also made reference to a full moon or a tiara or a moon god. And so it's kisua, kebusu, agu. You find it in Proverbs 7:20, in Psalm 81:4 regarding that covered moon. But it means fullness or full moon or a festival and all the good things. But my point being is that you see something here. My point that I was trying to make is that perhaps what he's looking for is that covering that he lost his countenance, his brightness, because the idea is that he became nafal or he nafal.
Right.
That word nafal first mentioned is in Genesis when Elohim is confronting Cain, and he tells him, do what's right and you'll be accepted. And then he considers, and he says to him, why has your countenance fallen? This is the word nafal. And so it's speaking of the brightness of his being, his countenance, the brightness has become darkened. And so if we think about the kingdom of darkness, we think about what exactly must have happened metaphorically, of course, or figuratively. Perhaps Satan, with all of his stones and his brilliance, which I think, again, is metaphorically speaking of the brilliance of his covering, which is why they would say that he is the likened to this dawn or the morning star, right? So he nafal, he fell, his countenance has become darkened, right? He's this,
I love it.
It even says that he appears to be as an angel of light.
Oh,
right?
I'm
One who
tracking
can
with you.
enlighten.
Let's go back. Let's go back to Ezekiel 28 because this is good stuff. Okay, so what does it say here? He says that so he says, I destroyed you, O covering cherub, from the midst of the fiery stones. Your heart was lifted up, etc., etc. And then he says, so in the New King James, it says, I brought fire from your midst and it devoured you. Now, in the Hebrew, it says, Va'otzi esh mitochecha. So I caused fire to come out from within you, which kind of blows my mind because again, when we look at the other Kruvim, the other cherubim in Ezekiel chapter 1, they're these very fiery kind of creatures. They have a covering of fire. And he says to this one, he says, I took that fire away. I took the fire away from you because you weren't playing nice. All right. And you ask the question, what did he do? Well, the text actually tells us very specifically. And part of it is, well, unfortunately, I think we kind of maybe used the wrong word. Says by the abundance of your trading. I really don't think that's the best translation. It's by berov rechulatcha. All right. So by the abundance of your slandering. This word rachal, it means to come and go, to exchange. It's related to the word ragal, which means to walk about, which is your regel, your foot. All right. So it's this coming and going. It's this exchanging of not only goods that you can buy and sell, but just ideas. Okay. So and it's this idea of slandering. Okay. And it's not just the idea of it. It's very much used that way in scripture. So I'm not just making this up. Right. So by the abundance of your slandering, you became filled with violence. Now, what is the word slanderer in the Greek? Drum roll, please.
Satan.
Diabolos.
Satan.
Diabolos, the devil.
That's right.
Right?
The devil.
Yeah, the devil, right?
The
That's his other
adversary.
name. The adversary, exactly. Right?
The accuser of the brethren.
You got it, right? So he was probably accusing God, was my guess.
Sure.
That he was like, what did he say? Did God really say?
Right.
But it
he's a
seems
bad
that,
guy.
yeah, and he maybe
depriving you.
Maybe he was saying these things for some time. We don't know. But as a result of this abundance of his slandering, God took the fire out from within him. So I love what you're saying about Cain, because I also talk in Correcting Image Volume 1, I talk about how we had coverings of light. All right. There's something called biophotonics, and it's this phenomenon whereby all DNA absorbs and emits light. It's pretty wild, right? It absorbs and emits light. Proof, look at Moses when he went up on top of the mountain. He comes down and he doesn't realize that the skin of his face is glowing. It's shining, all right? Which is the word karan, which is the same word as keren, which is a horn. And that's why when Michelangelo did Moses, he had some horns on there. But so he was glowing because he had this huge input of light coming into him, and then it came out, but then it eventually faded away. Before the fall, Adam and Eve would have had the same principle, but it never would have faded away, right? It only started to fade when they sinned. And I think that's when their eyes were open and they realized, we're naked, right? And I don't think that I don't think it was instantaneous. I think that it was like, something just changed. Eve, you're not glowing as much. I'm not quite sure why, but you're a little bit.
That's why they say with women when they're pregnant, oh, you're glowing.
I agree with you.
Because there's life inside. What does John 1:1 say? Right? The beginning was the Word was Elohim. He was with Elohim, all the good stuff, right? Yeah. But it specifically says through him, all things were made. Without him, nothing was made. And it says in him was life. And that life was the light of men. Yes. And I know we got to end soon, but I just want to give like a hopeful ending here. And if I think I said the word irregular, no, irregardless. And I'm like, oh, did I really say that? Okay. So
that's 5 demerit points for you. Okay.
Oh, I'm in Florida. All right, here we go. So of course, again, I'm not trying to take this out of context, but I think we can see something here in regards to the destruction, the downfall of this entity. And so it says here in Job chapter 20, verse 6. And of course, it's speaking of the godless and their momentary triumph. But nonetheless, it says, though his arrogance, watch this, we're going to see some of the attributes of his cunning or his, what'd you say, his violence or his Hamas, his trafficking. But it says here, though his arrogance, I love that, reaches the heavens and his head touches the clouds, he will Abaddon, be destroyed forever, right? He will perish forever like his own dung. Those who had seen him will ask, where is he? Now, there's also
Wow.
another one in Jeremiah 51:53. Even if Babylon ascends to the heavens and fortifies her lofty stronghold, the destroyers Yahweh will send against her. And so in Obadiah 1:3, it says, the pride of your heart has deceived you, O dwellers in the clefts of the rocks, whose habitation is the heights, who say in your heart, who can bring me down to the ground? And finally, in Obadiah 1:4, though you soar like the eagle and make your nest among the stars, even from there, I will bring you down, declares Elohim.
Wow.
And so I thought that was extremely interesting. The pride in his heart, his arrogance. And again, I just think it's really important that we go back to the idea that his throne, which again, we can look at this later, but it does say something canopied or covered. But nonetheless, I'm not thinking that it's actually like a cover, but a position or a rank, right? A rank, his authority. You know, when it says that the man is the head of the woman, he's her covering. He's not necessarily covering her physically, but it means something in regard to authority or power or dignity, right? So he lost his dignity. He lost his authority. He lost his honor. He lost his glory.
Yeah.
He lost his glory.
Oh, and we could go on a long time about
we really
the
could
fall of Satan and all that stuff. Man, this hour flew by, and
it did.
we
So
didn't
much
get
fun.
to the questions. I'm sorry, guys, but save them for next time. I'm sure there's some phenomenal stuff in there, but we're out of time.
Actually, you know what you can invite them to do really quick? You can invite them to leave the comments in your comments section of this video. We can pull them for next week and answer them.
Good idea. Yeah, if you leave them in this chat, they'll get erased. But if you put them in the chat below, then we can look at those later. Good idea. Excellent. Well, thank you, Jessica. That was phenomenal. It was really fun. And yeah, so until next time, God bless everyone. Have a good week.